Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you could please take a roll call.
Mr. Weaver?
Here.
Dr. Carter?
Here.
Mrs. Eisenberg?
Here.
Mrs. Henry? Mrs. Hughes? Mrs. Hughes? Mr. Sheets?
Here.
Mr. Tomasi?
Here.
Mrs. Walliser? Here. Mr. Ryder?
Here. All right. Moving on. Any public comment or items that need to be added to the agenda? Hearing none. Moving on to the intermediate and middle school renovation project.
So, board members, if you don't mind, we'll go down below. Casey Ye is here to do a presentation. What we'd like to do is just do a recap. I know it's fresh in everyone's mind, but we'd like to do a recap of the presentation of the project, talk about where the numbers came in, and then we'll come back up here to officially vote on the project.
There's one side of the floor plan that has like a bunch of stuff that advances. So
See that again?
it's at the first slide, the first couple slides. It's just a floor plan we're going to talk about. Just build it up at the base of this. So if you just like keep advancing, it'll bring up like everything one at a time, like these squares. So the last one is when it says here, ACS. That's the last one, the medium definition at the top. That's like the last one to advance to, and then I'll tell you when it starts.
Okay.
I think
You're gonna have to like.
I'll tell you to go next.
back.
Yeah. I think.
You get aspirates? Give them aspirates?
Oh, it's up here. Jesus.
Should I be up there? Okay.
Are you okay? It's probably taking a lot of this classes. Did you take this class, a lot of take classes right now?
Yeah, she has that up there. Eve.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a road closure, like the current line.
Yeah.
And I toured all the way. It's a lovely picture, farm country. Of course, my photos should be the best, and it's like, right.
I sent you that picture, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I'm glad I didn't do it, and I'm just thinking. No, I'm just doing this, and I'm sure like.
Okay. Good evening again, everyone. I'm just going to give us a brief update about, as Mr. Carter said, where the bids came in last week, and kind of give you some options about what alternates we are going to recommend to take for the construction project. So again, board action tonight is the motion to approve the bids and the alternates for the renovations to the schools. So on bid day, we had 4 different primes. We had the general contractor, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. We got a number of bidders. We were lucky to get 1 mechanical contractor. Not as many bidders as we anticipated, but still we got bidders, which is great. Here, the bidders that were asterisk were the ones that came in as the apparent low bidders for the base bid numbers. And then as follows, those were their prices under their contracts. So again, you know, we bid about 4 different kinds, which came to a total of around 5.4 million, which was great. That was right under our target of what we wanted to hit. So we were really happy with that because the climate is a little volatile right now. So that was really awesome. So I'm just going to quickly go over again all the items that you were going to get just in the base bid work of what's included in that 5.4 million. So the first item is an upgrade to all these corridors. This is first floor and second floor. So you're getting new floors, new ceilings, new lighting. We're painting all the corridor blocks, the glazed block, removing a lot of those lockers within the admin wing and replacing them with display. Just getting a really good freshen up in those corridors. And then we're also getting a freshen up in the main lobby as well, which I'll show you some renderings in a little bit. In the middle part, we're doing a refresher to the literacy center. So again, new floors, new ceilings, fresh coat of paint, rearranging the existing casework a little bit to get additional display walls. And then, you know, our commons area, which really, you know, accentuates here our main node that has the SGI, the LGI that now converts into the board meeting space, attaching to the literacy center and the TV studio. And again, that same thing happens on the second floor as well. Your auditorium, this space, this time next year will be bright, shiny, and new. You're going to get new seats, new flooring, new house lighting. So that's all the lighting in the space here. New front stage curtains, new acoustical treatments on all the walls, on the sides, on the back, at the front of the stage here. You know, it's going to feel like a completely new space once it's done. Then also, we're getting our stadium bathrooms. Again, we are cutting into the trainer's room in this corner, adding these gang bathrooms that are accessible from the exterior and the interior. That includes minimal finishes in the wrestling room that we need to do to complete that, but the wrestling room also gets new ceiling and lighting. And then the trainer is going to move into this locker room at the bottom here. We're demoing out those existing lockers in the locker room, providing the space needed for their training tables, whirlpools, other things like that, and enclosing the toilet, the single toilet so that there's a room in there to use the facilities. And then also you're getting air conditioning in your gymnasium, which is awesome. And then in the second floor, as I said, corridors again, upgrades, our commons area, which is similar to the ground floor with the SGI, and then your new STEM lab in the existing LGI on the second floor. So a couple of these images again, existing lobby, we're getting some display, that's an old picture, I apologize. Your casework is over here with the display, but we're getting a new upgrade to the front lobby. Your corridors, taking out those lockers, getting display, new tap boards, repainting all these walls so that they're consistent color, new ceilings, new lighting. Your first floor commons, again, this is that SGI space here, the LGI is behind that, the literacy center is in the back, and all of these breakout spaces, you're getting 3 of them in that zone, countertop lights, group tables for small groups, things like that. And the same thing on the second floor, very similar, and SGI in the corner and 3 breakout spaces. In the LGI, we're getting our new STEM lab, which, again, we have this volume here, which is, we're going to call a clean lab with the computers and things, and then down in the lower space, we have the dirty lab where you can run robots and, you know, do all kinds of messier projects in that space. You're getting an upgrade to the auditorium lobby as well. You know, we're adding some wood finishing here, some new signage to decorate the auditorium, new ceiling in here. You're going to get a new floor in here as well, new railings here. One other thing I should have said too, any railings in the stair towers are also going to be brought up to code, so we're going to replace a couple of handrails. In one of the stair towers, we're replacing all the handrails, guardrails in there. So we're going to acknowledge that as well in the project. Another view going down towards the music wing there. And again, your auditorium, you know, you're getting new seats, new floors, acoustical treatments, new walls. The stage front, you're getting a new stage front across here. So all of this will go away and this will become risers down. And again, you're going to get all this new acoustical treatment. We're going to face the ceiling here, add different lighting. That baffle will go and the lights will hide up in the ceiling, so that'll be a nice touch to that. So again, and I'm repeating myself, but you're getting all of these things for that price, which is awesome. So along with the base bid things, we had a lot of alternates because we had a lot of things that we wanted to see how the prices came in so that you could select things to add here. I'm not going to go over all of these in detail, but there's just a couple things that I want to note here. Cafeteria finishes. This was new floors, new ceilings, new lighting, paint, fresh coat of paint. The cubbies on the sides, we're going to take those off, cover them with a plastic laminate, have countertops for students to sit at with power. That was a really great price, and that was a high priority for the committee. So we thought that would be a great alternate to take. I know you had seen previously exterior canopy images, which I'll show you again, but that price came in really, really high. You know, we think that there is something, you know, we could talk to the contractor to see if we could do something different for a lower price, maybe just paint up some of the steel on the outside, but you could also think about doing something else later with the stadium. But again, you know, we kind of pulled that out because that's a piece that can be done on its own. We felt like that was something that we could pull out if we needed to, depending on where the numbers came in. Your gymnasium finishes, that was a great price. If you're going to get paint and a new logo on the walls, we figured you should definitely try to take that one. But the folding partition wall, that came in high as well. Mike Wetzel got a different price from the vendor directly, so a cheaper price. So we feel as though we should talk to them and pull that piece out of the project as well. You probably get a cheaper price for that. As far as these three items, auxiliary gym and weight room AC, it came in at a good price, but you know, you may not necessarily need those items. There's going to be air conditioning in the gymnasium. When the doors are open, you'll hit the auxiliary gym as well. And the weight room AC, you could give or take if you really wanted air conditioning in the weight room. And then classroom unit ventilator replacement, we're seeing a lot of weird lead times in unit vents right now. They're hard to get. So we recommend maybe that comes out of a capital projects fund or some other funds, because we may not be able to get a lot of those unit vents in time for a summer project. They may have to be installed second shift or after school or during holiday, so that might you know, hinder the construction schedule. But the cafeteria rooftop replacement, that came in at a good number, and we know it's on its last leg, so we would encourage you to do that one as well. And you could also use some of those ESSER funds to fund that piece as well, so that would be a good thing there. Sage Electric, that came in pretty high, so again, we would recommend maybe doing some other investigative work for some vendors for that one. But this controlled dimming corridors, that's an easy credit. You don't need dimming in the corridors. That was kind of an option that we saw from the engineers. So that's an easy $24,000 in your pocket that you can take money out of the budget there. But I know you've probably seen this number here for corridor finishes. This is a deduct alternate to go to a lesser product in the corridors. And we added that so that if the numbers came in really, really, really high and you needed to pull some money out, you could have the option to go down to a lesser floor product in corridors. But what we have in the base bid is a really good product. It's quartz tile. It's in between a terrazzo product and a VCT product, which is what you have now in the hallways. You have VCT now. But the quartz tile you don't need to wax every summer. And okay, well, you don't need to wax every summer. The quartz tile just needs to be buffed, and you'll save a lot of money on maintenance costs. So we would actually recommend that you don't take that one, because again, you're going to get a product that's going to last a lot longer than your typical VCT in corridors would. Did I miss something on this?
No, I think
okay.
it's just
Okay.
Well, we had a small for
Was that family?
the stage play. Just want to talk about that 174,000 just.
Yeah. So that number was would be just the lights on the stage here. It doesn't include the lights out here in this baffle, it's just on the stage here. So, and it's just the lights that attach to the rigging, like the rigging is gonna stay. So it's just those light fixtures, which, I think you have 2 lines of them here. And it came in very expensive. And we realize that stage lighting is very expensive. But, you know, again, that's something that, this isn't your main district performance space. You know, we're doing a lot of great work in here, but if you're thinking that all the bigger performances would happen at the high school, you know, you still want good lighting here, but again, if your larger performances and things are happening there, you may think about, well, maybe this can wait until a little bit later in the future. So, I was gonna give two options for you, of potential combinations between the base bid and alternates that you could select. I believe the motion tonight is leaning towards option 2, but again, this is up for discussion. So, we're looking at, again, all these items that you're getting a base bid for a total of 5.4 million. And then they gave you 3 alternates. Number 3, the cafeteria finishes, your gymnasium finishes, and the controlled dimming in the corridors would be a deduct. So that would be a total of almost 220,000 in 220,000 in alternates. So that would give you a total construction contract of 5.6. So then option 2 is really what one we're looking at here. So it would be adding on to those 3 and then cafeteria rooftops units. So again, we thought that was a really great price that came in for that. You could use the ESSER funds, and if that unit is on its last leg. And if that comes in, we have lead time problems with that one. It's on the roof, so that can be done outside of the summer schedule. It's a good replacement that can be done again during the school year because it's outside. So that brings you here to a total construction contract of 5.8. And again, we feel like this is a great option to take. You're getting all the priority items that the school is looking for educational wise. We get a lot of the infrastructure items and MVP items that Mike is looking for. You know, and this is really just a great project here. So that's just want to be quick with that and leave it up to your discussion now. If anyone has any questions?
Yeah, just a couple things as we transition here. Can you just go back to the slide, please? So you can see the cost here. One of the first things, James, you did a great job running through this, great job as a partner for us, because at this point, I think everyone knows construction costs are really elevated right now. We feel really good about this number as the building construction committee, because while it is slightly above from where we wanted to be, in light of everything going on in the current world of construction, this came in really good. So we're recommending that we would take option 2. And the reason we're doing option 2 instead of option 1 is that cafeteria rooftop, the number 9 alternate, the 134,000. I did confirm we wouldn't be able to use ESSER funds, which is those dollars we got in. We got 900,000 the first one, and then 1.8 the second, 1.8 the second one. So we would be able to use those funds to replace that unit. So that's why we're recommending to include that in the project, because we can offset that as part of the expenditure. Any questions for Jake before we go up and appreciate the program?
You can also ask me questions up there.
I don't know if it's a question for her, but why are we doing everything in this room but those lights?
You are doing those lights.
Okay.
It's the lights and this behind the curtain that you're not doing. So the lights behind the curtain are an alternate. That was 175. So there we go. Sorry.
Is this in this option 2?
It is not. So option 2 includes basically everything from the curtain back with lighting. As Jamie said, you can see the one row of lights under there now, and there's the second one back there.
Yeah, the second one is behind the projection screen.
So we went through the bids at 175,000, thought that was pretty expensive for what they were actually doing. And so there's a couple other alternates that we'd like to explore doing that internally.
Okay.
It needs to get done, but for 175,000,
I agree with that.
it's pretty expensive.
Okay.
So we're going to check in. There's a company out in Pittsburgh that specializes in that, and there's also one called Lehigh Electric out here. So we had gotten a quote from them for high school, so Mr. West was working on that. So I don't have numbers, I wish I had numbers for you now, I'll give it to you, but yeah, it's on the priority.
Yes,
Yeah, you say the rigging's staying on the stage?
yes, the rigging is staying.
Now, it's my understanding when we first started this whole project, one of our initial concerns was the rigging on the stage was not safe. And that was the primary thing that we're gonna do in this room, and not gut the whole thing and redo it. How come we're not doing that and we're gutting the whole place?
The curtains are going, right?
Yes, the front curtains are going, you're getting new front curtains. I apologize, I was not aware that the rigging was unsafe in the first
That
priority.
was put initial discussion, like 2 years, whenever we started this whole project.
I agree with you. I heard the same thing. That's why I asked the question. I didn't want to bring that up, but yes, I remember the exact same conversation.
I think that was part of Crabtree's assessment back when we did our initial facility project assessment.
Yes, you're right.
So as we go in and do the light and get that quote, we'll get that evaluated as well. So that was the next.
And when our engineers came out and surveyed the building, they didn't see anything wrong with the rigging. I can confirm that again with them, but they would have told, I'm not sure they would have told me if there was a major issue with it that needed to be replaced. Our engineers have put together the construction documents.
And Dr. Carter, we did have a almost 1 week spent talking about the rigging and the stage and that sort of thing. And that's what I recollect, that at that point, working with KCBA, that rigging was okay. But again, when we get that other company, we'll make sure that it's evaluated. That's, we're going to want to put lights in, don't something happen. Any other questions? So if we don't have any, I think we'll transition as we do that. I'd just like to mention that Mr. Kelly, who has been a brief point of contact, was able to make this evening. He actually had another board meeting he was going to this evening. So Jamie, again, has been a phenomenal partner with us. So thank you, Jamie, for getting us to this point. I do believe it's going to be an excellent refresh and revitalization of our space here. It's going to make it a student-centered, student-friendly space. We're going to go up. And we'll vote.
Great, thanks. Okay, we're now.
Yes, yes, so we've got the savings. Yes, yes. And where are we sitting?
Oh, the reason why I took it. It's you guys.
Well, the thing is, if it does, well, I have to take a picture for my business. That's right. All right, can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second. All right, so we have a motion and a second for option 2 of the construction project, which is a total of $5,822,700. Is there any additional discussion?
I
I did have one quick question. Mr. Potter, would you clarify what our game plan is for that outdoor stadium work? I remember it was postponed to the fall, but it might be just a good level set for everybody. Where are we at with that now in relation to, it's clearly not in this scope, but what's our game plan?
Yeah, that's a great segue. So, got the elementary done. Now this building, the next stage will then be the outside of this building, as well as the outside of the high school. So at the outside of the high school, we're still talking about doing some work at the field, making that driving loop back to the gymnasium area, make a safer entrance for our students, and we'll kind of revitalize that area. So get this project going, and we're going to kind of get this going through the summer, then start the process with KCBA of working through the outside of this. We already had some good work done, but it's kind of picking that all back up now, going through that permitting process with the township. That's going to take a little bit longer, and then hopefully be able to get that on the street for bids. I think a fair timeline would probably be this fall.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we just want to confirm what the permitting process would be with the township, but I believe like, maybe December at the latest, we would put an estimate. So we want to get on board with ELA as well. We'll need a civil engineer's input. So, we'll talk to you about that as well.
And then depending on the discussion with the additional borrowing, where we go with that, if that would become a reality, I think it might be worth a conversation to say we clump the two projects together and they're all outside work, all savings. So that's kind of the next final phase of this major building project renovations.
Okay, so for the fall sports season this fall, 2021, we should not count on the stadium renovation. We would probably count on that the following spring or spring sports, and then the following fall for our fall sports that play on.
Yep, that's perfect, yes.
Yep, okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure, well, kind of clarify a little bit for me, but the ventilation system on the second floor for the classroom is obviously something that I feel is pretty important, especially right now in this day and age that we're going through. So can you just assure me that that is going to be something that we're going to definitely be doing in the near future if it's in bad shape?
So that's a great point, because if I could just take that one step further, we still do have our project list on the capital improvement side. So there's an air handler, a chiller at the high school that has to get done. These will get included in that process. So those things are still on an ongoing list. We have been putting money aside internally to be able to fund some of those projects, and this will get added to that. Just with the escalating costs right now, they're still manageable, they're still working, but we're gonna have to definitely put that on the list for the near future to be able to tackle that, when this prices come back down. But that we'll see that transition over into that capital improvement project. Yeah. Great question.
Okay, another question. So looking at a lot of these projects that initially were under our initial funding are now being pushed out and aren't included in our initial funding. Like the outside work and then some of these other projects are no longer incorporated into the initial funding that we did last year.
That's correct, yeah. So that's a lot of these, that last phase I just spoke out is really dependent on what we decide as a board with that next phase borrowing. If we decide not to do that, then we'll still have those priority, it will just get pushed back. And we'll have to then prioritize about some of the other items that are on the capital improvement list, included with some of those bigger projects that we would be pushing off in that kind of that phase 3, I'll call it, and figure out how we want to handle that moving forward. If we do the borrowing, that obviously expedites the timeline, and we can get this done faster.
And in the current environment, the dollar doesn't stretch as far as construction. So we didn't anticipate those elevated numbers when we first did that. We were thinking there was going to be a chunk left over.
Right.
out of this.
For instance, the one glaring thing is the outdoor canopy. And quite frankly, steel costs are astronomical right now. So that number was significantly inflated as far as I'm concerned. And we made the decision to in my opinion, rightfully pulled that out.
Yeah, but that's not a priority.
What's that?
I wouldn't classify that as a priority.
What were you alluding to that you thought would be a priority?
Well, I mean, we're talking air exchangers, we're talking,
Yeah.
you know, the stadium, things like that.
So the stadium they pulled out, so, okay.
Yeah.
The stadium they pulled out because, a lot of it had to do, with trying to get the project done in a timely manner, so we include that into this phase of it. And we were concerned about any, some of the township, approvals, yeah, which could take time. So, right from the get-go, they said we ought to just pull that out separately and work on that, and give ourselves time to work on that. We discussed it, we actually had some renderings and some plans of what that could look like and what the funding would potentially be for that. It just hasn't been committed, we'll have to wait for that.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna trouble explaining a lot of to, you know, just the community, you know, because the LMP came in almost 100 square hundred, almost a million below our projection. So we had that reserve going into this, and now we're gonna have to borrow more to take care of the projects that we wanted to incorporate in the initial wiring. So I'm trouble, you know, justifying some of these expenses, especially redoing the whole.
I think a lot of explaining it is what's the situation we're in. And, you know, we can't propose the cost, and we're trying to offset it by doing things like some of our air flow and things we can actually cover in the grants that we've been getting. So we have to include them because we have to pay for them, and we don't have the funds yet, but we are going to be allowed to reallocate that back. So there could be some cost savings in the end once we're able to cover these things. But we also have to make sure that if that doesn't happen, we are okay with paying for it. But we just find out that we can't use them, so, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, because Mr. Kelly even told us we need to say seating for the children is considered necessary because of spacing and things like that. So that can be covered by our funds. So, but covering things that are important on the air exchange is, but I think that just the rising cost of everything right now is something we just have to deal with, and we can't back out.
And Dr. Carter, in my opinion, like, I thought these bids would come back a lot higher than what they did, so I'm really optimistic that they, really, lukewarm numbers, but I'm okay with it compared to what I thought it was gonna be based on what I figured out. This is revealing to me, because we're kind of retrofitting a lot of new stuff here compared to new building, which is a whole other factor.
Mr. Carter, if I could add something just to help ease your worries about the rising costs. We had a middle school or an elementary school renovation and addition go out to bid last year at this time, and it came in at like 8-9 million. And then they bid it again. They decided to reject the bids and rebid it again this year. So a year later, it was $2.8 million more. The same exact project. The drawings didn't change at all. So that just shows you how volatile things have been over the last year. So the fact that the numbers came in where they were today, like these numbers, was really, really surprising and really, really positive. I've seen steel costs for other projects go up 30% in a matter of days. It's a little scary right now. So the fact that your prices came in where they are is really, really great. So, and to Mr. Tomasi's point, we do have designs and ideas for the stadium at the high school and for the stadium here. But we were concerned, there was a short timeline to get things designed and bid and out the door so you could do work here this summer. So that was why we encouraged the committee to pull out a lot of those exterior items so that we could do some investigation into permitting. Because if you're going to build fields, you're going to need storm retention, and you're going to need to go through land development. So, that's going to be a bit of a process. And that would have pushed this off another year or two. So we wanted to make sure that this got started while we had the timeline to do work here.
The other thing that helped me get more comfortable as we, as a committee, kind of got down to the wire of what's in, what's out, and what can we afford, and what's the most urgent. I really, frankly, leave a lot on Mr. Farina's input in terms of the best bang for the buck as it relates to students in the building. So the STEM lab upstairs in the LGI, the library, we're calling it now the literary center, completely reconfigured, and all this common space on both the first floor and the second floor outside of that library. And then this facility here will be, much closer to state of the art than it is today. So those were the key things. So rather than me focusing on what we're not getting, I was really trying to listen hard to what Mr. Farina was saying about what we are getting as it relates to student impact, positive student impact and experience. And then on top of that, we are getting some cosmetic and aesthetic stuff that is certainly not as crucial, but that elevates sort of the experience for both students, staff, and then community members who visit us. Just kind of, present this level of attractiveness. It's not, top of the line by any means, but it's certainly not a 1960s or 70s or 80s building look and feel in this new model. So for me, the aesthetic stuff is nice to have and certainly helps a general vibe, but the critical stuff for me was around what the students are getting in those common areas, the auditorium, the library, and then that cool new STEM lab. And then, as perhaps insignificant as it sounds, the air conditioning in the gymnasium, I think it is kind of a big deal. So those sort of 4 or 5 things focused on student impact is what helped me get okay with it.
Any additional discussion, comments? Hearing none. Nicholas, would you please take the roll call?
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Dr. Carter?
No.
Mrs. Eisenman? Yes. Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Tomasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallheiser?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
7 yeas, motion carries.
Right, moving on to other business. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved. Second.
So the 2 items, or the 3 items in here this evening for other business. The first one is what Mrs. Ward was talking about earlier, which was that modern pool quote that we had received for that foldable wall within the intermediate middle school gymnasium. So if you recall, that was about $140,000 price tag. Our quote is $91,000, so it seems to be a lot more sense for us to take that out of the project and do that internally as a project there. So that's why that's included for this evening. Additionally, there is a item here, a personnel item, to approve a $1,000 stipend per month to be paid to our assistant business manager. She has been doing a phenomenal job. As you recall, last meeting, we recognized her with the New Heights Award. She's been doing a phenomenal job filling in when we don't have a business manager, taking care of the functionality of the office and also supporting the next level up and filling in with the business manager. So we have put that in as a consideration this evening for a motion to provide her a little bit extra funds for her capacity she's filling right now. Finally, the third one is to approve the testing window for the 2020-2021 PSSA testing schedule. So this is a little bit out of the ordinary, but what we're looking to do is shift the normal testing window from the springtime, which we'll be testing this week, and transition that to the June 7th, 8th, 9th would be the ELA. Mathematics would be June 14th and 15th, and then science would be June 16th, and then we added 1 additional week for any makeup windows. any makeup test. So what we would be doing is providing transportation for any student that would be wanting to take the PSSAs. The PSSAs would be administered in its normal fashion with the same safety protocols we do in school. We'll be using electronic-based assessments this year. And again, transportation will be included for those that would be taking the PSSA. We did talk with our solicitor regarding this issue and ran by the communications and the process and timeline window. And according to the solicitor, we are in line with what the Department of Education is allowing with the flexibility for this year. This is important to note that we still find the PSSAs valuable. We still use that data, but in this year in particular, there's not any accountability to the PSSAs. And so because of that, we feel it's important to take that instructional time that we would be otherwise devoting to testing for 2-3 weeks, use that as the time where we're able to meet with students during this 4 days a week instruction, really gets to instruction towards the end of the school year, and divert the schedule for PSSA testing until after the school year. So if this is approved, we would be sending out communication, which would be going out this week to parents notifying them of this process and the change and the reasons why the rationale behind it. Any questions for those items?
A couple of quick questions just on the PSSA piece. So, Mr. Potter, I think you just shared that from a district perspective, we take 2 to 3 weeks typically, historically, out of instructional time to essentially teach to the test. And I guess I'm not sure, based on my years of service here to the district as a board member, that it's ever been openly said that way before. My understanding was that we actually had a strategy in which we consciously did not teach to the test.
I don't think we said teach to the test. We said that's how much time it's taken for them to have to teach.
To administer the test.
Yeah.
It takes us that long to administer the test.
Okay, so 2 to 3 weeks is 15 days, 10 to 15 days. What I see here is 5 days.
So you have to allow the makeup windows in there.
Right.
So that's why it takes that amount of time.
And our special ed students usually take the full week. Like, regular ed will be done on those 3 days, and then that will be another 2 days for our special ed kids.
Okay, so we're not talking about the prep time to prepare for the exam, the PSSA test. We're talking about simply the days in which the test is rendered.
Correct.
Okay.
Administration of.
Okay, thank you, because that makes me, I was going, wow, when did that shift happen in front of my eyes, right? Okay, so that's one question. Thank you for clarifying, appreciate that. And then the second question, it's my understanding that based on the requirements that were provided as we evaluated teachers, classroom teachers, that a piece of their performance evaluation every year is tied to PSSA scores and performance at the district level. Can you talk to us about what your thinking is as it relates to how are you going to effectively handle performance evaluations when, in all likelihood, the data from this test not only is maybe not fair to hold people accountable to, but also it would be a reasonable prediction that holding the test in the days following the close of school may in fact drive down the number of students who actually do come back to school those days and take the exam. So with those 2 data points in mind, what's your sort of strategy for teacher performance evaluation?
So if I can just take it one step higher, I alluded to the accountability, that the tests aren't being used for accountability. And I didn't go into much detail, but that detailed accountability is exactly what you were talking about with the performance connections to assessment. So our teachers, primarily, and our administrators, part of their evaluation is tied to the building level data. So what score does the building get in the PSSA drives part of their evaluation. This year, as we go through this process, the Department of Education we have, and really, it's not just the Department of Education, it's coming from the federal Department of Education, down to the State Department of Education, down to the local school districts. We still have to administer a statewide assessment. We are administering a statewide assessment, but they have given flexibility this year in terms of what dates are allowed to be administered. So we can administer from now, actually all the way up until September of next year, which is why we're able to choose this option of doing it in the summer. Because the accountability piece has been removed, we still have to administer that, but we don't have the accountability side of it. That is, will no longer be linked to the evaluations for this year. So the evaluations, the score that would be normally is attributed to the building level data will now be attributed to the observation of the staff member. So that percentage of the pie, that percentage would go to observation and not go to building level PSSA score. So that's how we're going to be able to still administer the PSSAs, choose this option, but not have to be worried about the accountability measure being tied back to the school district, or more importantly, I guess in some ways, being attributed back to the individual staff member that would be negatively or adversely impacted by this decision if we don't have students taking the assessment.
Okay, helpful. So, you know, there's a pie for teachers, and they've got categories in which they're judged or ranked or scored for performance evaluation. A slice of that pie, historically, I think it was 15%, was tied to building level PSSA results. What we're saying is that slice of the pie will now be replaced with observation, classroom observation.
That's correct.
Fabulous. That's the piece that wasn't clear to me prior. Thank you.
That's it.
Okay.
And then is it also the reverse? Like if you have a subpart teacher, the PSSA won't artificially inflate their evaluation this year?
So if you
If
had,
they're just evaluating observation and they're not doing their job.
so part of the problem with the evaluation system, doing one of those soapbox here. Part of the evaluations, the problem with the evaluation system in Pennsylvania, they changed it and made it so that there is more weight on the assessments in an effort to do exactly what you're talking about, and to try to illustrate that if there's a poor teacher, let's hold them accountable with the test scores that the students are administering. What happened was the opposite. So our teachers that are really good teachers, if there's a mediocre test score, it actually brings their rate down. And our teachers that are not doing super well, it brings their scores up. So it norms everyone to the middle instead of really classifying them where they should be. So that is the problem with the evaluation system in Pennsylvania. This year, by removing that data score for 1 year, it will really focus heavily on the observation component of the evaluation.
So like I said, if you have a teacher here for this year's evaluation, can you get them into some kind of more course or remedial training that they may not, you know, you won't be able to do it other years because they're drug out.
Yeah, that building level score will not be part of that, and so it will truly represent their performance.
Yeah, so if you have some data that you can say, hey, you know, our observation that you're not doing your job, but see what we do to get you better.
Yeah, and we are having this, just to clarify, we are having this conversation if there's that issue, and then the improvement plans come along, and there's a whole process that goes with that. But yeah, from the purely evaluation standpoint, that's the process that we use this year.
And as we talk about classroom evaluation of teachers, is it reasonable for us to believe that, given our investment for the past 2 years in that administrator, whose one of her key focuses is to support the enhancement and broadening of instructional skills in the classroom, is it reasonable for us to think that kind of overall we should see some favorable impact based on that extra coaching and professional development and one-on-one support that we're providing?
Yeah, that role has been critical in terms of doing everything you just talked about, building that capacity of instruction, curriculum understanding, building that connection of assessments into the actual teaching instruction, and modifying the instruction, working with our higher level teachers on finding ways to adjust their starting sizes. So those efforts are being made. Of course, COVID has its own little wrinkle and everything, but we already have a plan developed for next year for a district-wide initiative, but it's focused primarily at those contacts. We're really focusing next year on how do you use assessments to drive construction. And it's not a new concept, it's something we've all, but at the tail of COVID, and getting everyone back into the swing of things and starting next year fresh, we really want to focus that effort on, okay, where are our students performing? And then how do I adjust that in my next lesson to modify that? And we have so many resources, technology resources that can quickly evaluate the test, find out what the skill deficiencies are in the students, to be able to, and our teachers can spend time developing lessons rather than doing the item analysis of grading. So we're really excited about that. That's kind of the next step, but that's really where that role is going to come into play to help us push that initiative next year.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Mrs. Whitman, can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Carter?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenberg?
Yes.
Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Shea?
Yes.
Mr. Tomasi?
Yes.
Mrs. Waller? Yeah. Mr. Beaver?
Yes.
Mr. Wyden?
Yes.
That is 9 yeas. Motion carries.
Moving on to discussion points, as the presentation from last meeting on the borrowing of additional monies. And we'll turn this over to Andrew to lead the discussion.
So in your packets this evening is the PSSA presentation. I should have mentioned this earlier before we voted on this, but there's the PSSA presentation highlighting all the facts and discussion points regarding that, as well as a letter to parents. And finally, there's this document, which you saw last meeting, which is the presentation from RBC and Scott Kramer, who went through the borrowing. If you recall, the percentage of borrowing right now is at about a 1.85%, and what he was discussing if we decided to go forward with a borrowing scenario. He outlined on the page 4, bottom left of your document, 3 different scenarios for us if we wanted to consider the additional borrowing of a $2 million loan. If we did that, there was an outline of a 10-year bank loan, an 11-year bank loan, and a 11-year bank loan that would push off essentially the interest until the very end of that loan payment period. In the comparison of the 11-year modified wrap, where you would build in some of that interest up front, versus the 11-year tight wrap, which would build in the interest towards the tail end of this. When you look at the, and I'm sure you intellectual board members have done this, but you look at the annual net debt service, you do that comparison, there really isn't a significant, massive significant difference over the course of 10 years. And when you look at what the payment impact would be on an annual basis of the 90 to 93,000 versus the 33,000, the green section for that tight wrap of 11-year is much more easy for us in the budget world of the education side of the structure to be able to manage that. We can easily, not easily, but we can come up with a way to fund that 33,000 the first year, and then it takes that next jump another 10,000 by the following year. But we would be able to build that in to the budget versus trying to come up with $100,000. That's a much bigger step to try to find some funding to be able to do that. So my recommendation, if the board wanted to proceed, while it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to push your interest off to the end, from the development of this loan process and from the development of a wraparound concept of debt, which is what our strategy has been for debt for the last several years, is that the 33,000 increase in the annual budget would be a lot easier to handle. So what do we do with the money? I think that's the other aspect of it. I think we talked about that already this evening, but we have the outside here with the intermediate middle school construction project as the stadium. That's anywhere between 250 to 500,000. And then what we'll be doing over at the high school for the outside is conservatively probably around $1 million to be able to do that work. Just to do some lighting out there, to upgrade the field, just leave it as grass, and just to upgrade it. And then to do some stadium enhancements as well as that driving loop. And conservative figures talk to the KCBA is around $1 million for that. So that money is going to get used pretty quickly if we decide to move forward with this.
What's your thought process for year 10 and 11 as far as budgeting too?
So when we get to year 10 and 11, and you look at that green section, I think that the key column is that right column. So our payment this year would be the 2.3 million, and then you basically have a little bit of a dip of 1.7, but then it drives itself at a 2.5. It's a very consistent payment all the way down to the very end, and it starts to fall off, and then it's a 1.2 million for that final year, that 11th year. So at that point, the likelihood is that we'll be talking about some other building project, because the high school will now be at that point probably numbers here about 25, 30 years old. So we're going to have to do some considerations for some work there at that point, and probably engage in another project or another loan. But the key factor is that we're going to be a very consistent payment at that 2.5 million, which from a budgeting perspective is exactly what we want. We don't want peaks and valleys. We have peaks and valleys. We try to find ways to be able to fund that. If we have a level payment the whole time, it's just a recurring number we have in the budget.
Yeah, Mr. Wright, that 800 to 1.2 number, that's just representative of the principal. The actual budgeted amount will be the 2.519, and then 1.264. So actually, in year 11, again, like Mr. Ryder said, we'll probably have another building project at that point that someone will be doing. But if we were to not need to borrow any more money, that'll actually be, year 11 will actually be $1.3 million less from a budget standpoint.
My concern is exactly what Andrew said, that it's 10 years from now, the high school's going to need some major renovations. And unlike what we were able to do with the current money we are spending, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm going to say 10 years from now, we're not going to be able to get 1.8%. So you wouldn't want to be wrapping, say, year 5, you wouldn't want to be wrapping this money into a new loan to free up. So my only concern is doing that. I understand the benefits of that. However, it's not a huge difference on the 10-year portion, and would allow us to not be, pigeonholed into doing something crazy when interest rates go back up to where they were, but 5%, 6%. That's my only.
I mean, realistically, from a debt standpoint, from a principal standpoint, I mean, this is allowing us to kind of push and make it a little bit easier from a budgetary standpoint. $160,000, $100,000 every year versus $40,000 every year. And I get where you're coming from. Wanting to pay that principal up and not be stuck with that principal at the end of things. And this might sound a little bit cynical, but I'm sure they'll have some sort of vehicle, financial vehicle, that will make it worthwhile or prudent for us to be able to, if we do continue to wrap that around, or we just make that payment, we pay everything off, and the reality is we just wait until that principal's paid off before we move on to another building project, especially if, if we see 1980s, interest rates where we're talking, 18, 19, 20% on jobs. I don't know. I think personally, looking at the three options, the green option, I think, exposes us or budgetarily kind of leaves us with a little bit of leeway, right? Because we're paying $150,000, $100,000 more. Realistically, you're talking about 2.5 mil. So versus 1/10, less than 1/10 of a mil, like 0.08 mil. From a budgetary standpoint, it's a little bit easier to work with.
The last question I have is, what is the plan for the 2022 budget? Since we're going to have some of these payments in that, and we're already trying to squeeze things.
So, a couple of things happened. I actually, so we met at the April board meeting. I had been notified of 3 teacher employees that are going to be retiring or resigning at the end of the school year. So that is a pretty significant budget impact for the good. Unfortunately, 3 good teachers that are going to be leaving for personal reasons. But that will help us get us to that good budget.
So I want to kind of share my comments from the perspective of blue, yellow, or green. I'm inclined, so you guys know, so frugal perspective, very fiscally conservative. So it's a little bit unusual for me to be recommending the 11-year 2% fixed loan. So the tight wrap structure under green. But the reason I'm recommending that, and it makes me feel the most comfortable, is because perhaps to Mr. Sheets' point, it gives the board and the district the most financial flexibility. These loans are prepayable. So if, for example, in any of these years, these 10 years, the district is a little bit flush with cash, the board could vote, or the business manager could recommend, the board could vote to take $50,000 and apply it as a loan payment, a principal-only loan payment against this debt. So we can always get back to blue with some very sort of strict fiscal management. What we can't do as easily is if we pick blue or pick yellow, then we're locked into that loan payment, and the only way to get out of that loan payment is by refining the bank. And frankly, a 2% fixed loan for 11 years for $2 million is a really terrific interest rate. I think we all acknowledge that. So if we're going to borrow, I feel like now's a good time to do that, given where the interest rate environment is currently and where it's likely projected to go over the next couple of years. And so while on paper it looks like it's a slightly more expensive approach for the district, if we manage it properly or fiscally conservative over the next 10 years, we could end up having it be a safe interest on it as compared to blue. If we make some excess payments from funds that we discover that maybe we don't have to spend on other things. So because of flexibility, that's why I'm going there.
So can we get a straw poll here for blue, yellow, and green?
Green.
Green it is.
All right, so next up, I will talk with Mr. Kramer on to come back out to the next board meeting, give everyone an update where we are with the interest rates, and then we'll have that resolution on the board meeting on this Monday.
Perfect. Anything else for good of the order? Hearing none, can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
So shall be.
Thank you, everyone. 6 minutes, okay?
Sorry. I did my best.